Everybody's ready? Okay. Ready and begin. All right. Well, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate everybody's time. That's awesome. I think I can put, sorry, I'm going to put the comments up there too so that I make sure I have those available. There we go. All right. We're going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So today we're going to go through a goal setting process called a W.H.O.P.I.E goal setting process. Maybe everybody's heard of what's called a SMART goal. So that's another acronym. And we're going to use that because I think that's really beneficial. I just think it lacks a couple things that could be a little bit better, make the goal a little more comprehensive. So we're going to attach a little emotion to it, make it a little smart with emotion, and have a plan to it as well. So a little overview of today. I'll go through these first few pretty quick. I'll tell you a little bit about who I am, what is nutrition coaching, and then we'll get into why most New Year's resolutions fail. I figured this was a good timing. If I was going to do a webinar like this, this is the time to do it. First of the year after a rough 2020. And then why most SMART goals fall short, and then what actually is a W.H.O.P.I.E goal. And then we're going to go through kind of step by step with your PDF, how to go through the W.H.O.P.I.E goal and all the parts to it, and kind of how to plug all those in. You may not be able to do all this on the webinar, but you'll get good ideas and you can write down some notes. And we're going to kind of use an example goal, kind of health, physique, and a little bit of a performance goal kind of put together. And I'll show you how you can do kind of a multi-stage goal like that too. And then we'll have a little Q&A at the end. So if anybody has any questions and want to know a little bit more, you can do that at the end. I'm an OT. That's how some of you know me. Also owned a CrossFit gym, coached at a CrossFit gym. Been doing that stuff for several years as well. I'm also an information junkie in general, and I love nutrition, movement, health. I like to push myself and have done that stuff my whole life, from sports as a kid through college to everything since I've been out of college, trying different endurance-based events for the most part. Also like to play some golf, lift some weights, and still ride my bike and keep myself in shape that way too. What is a nutrition coach? I think this part's important, just to preface it a little bit with what I do and what I don't do. So as a nutrition coach, I'm educated in the basics of nutrition and health, but also put that together with a little actionable behavior change, which is usually kind of the missing component, that communication and relationship part, and really putting all that together. And that's where I differ from like what a registered dietitian would do, or an RD, is they're usually in a medical setting. All the RDs I know and that I've talked to talk about how they basically get nothing really going towards behavior change, because they're always in that setting where somebody's coming to them and they're sick. It's not about performance or living to optimal health or improving physique or body composition. It's usually about illness more so than anything. So that's kind of what I am, what I'm not, compared to an RD, if you wanted to know what a nutrition coach does. Why I started nutrition first, and if everybody was on a webinar before, you probably are like, hey, these slides look familiar, because this is what I did at the beginning of the last webinar. But I love to coach. I started nutrition coaching because I just love the process. I coach people at work, I coach people at the gym, and I realized how much nutrition was playing such a huge part in people's, health journey or lack of health journey. To me, it's the missing link to most people's health and happiness. However, I realized it's always a problem, but it's not always an execution problem. It's people are knowledgeable, they want to make changes, they want to improve their health, and it's figuring all that out and putting it all together, changing habits and behaviors, and that's usually what's holding us back. There's always education involved in it, but it's definitely more so of execution. So sorry about reviewing that. Now let's get on to some fun stuff. So why do New Year's resolutions fail? So let's talk about good old New Year's resolutions. For some reason we have it socially that we decide like, okay, next year I'm going to make this change. New Year's is always a good time. We make these resolutions. We're going to lose weight, get healthier, run a marathon, you name it. We're all going to wait till the beginning of the year. I think it's a little combination of like social pressure, but then it's challenging to make a big change or set a big goal. So it's always easier to put it off. So that's why I think so many New Year's resolutions fail, because there's studies that show every year, upwards of 90+% of New Year's resolutions are pretty much out the window by the end of January. So we can't even blame it on COVID last year. By the time COVID hit, New Year's resolutions were pretty much washed out. Probably the biggest reason, and in my opinion, is, to quote Stephen Covey, is like, we need to begin with the end in mind. We need to work back from that big outcome goal so that we can take these little smaller goals and achieve them along the way and kind of build the habits and put the behaviors in place to achieve the goals. The second reason, I think, is that we tend to focus on goals that are just too big and they're maybe not even attainable by themselves. So achieving big goals requires a lot of changes to various parts of our lives. We have to do that in little short time frames, which is what we're going to talk a lot about today with setting some of these sub goals. I always love the, I don't know what you call it, a joke or the term, like, have you ever heard it where people say, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. No matter how big it is, you got to take small steps and kind of move forward. The third reason is usually because we're not really measuring stuff along the way. And we don't even know if we're doing the right things because we don't have any checkpoints. We don't have any metrics along the way. And we may get going in one direction and we realize it's not even what we want to do and it's not taking us towards our goal. So having those checkpoints and metrics along the way is critical and super important. The fourth one, I think, is probably the most challenging one, and that's whether your goals be happier, healthier, wealthier, strong, you name it. Whatever it is, to achieve those goals requires us to become somebody who's different than who we are today. And to do that, we need some kind of outside support. And I would almost say it's mandatory, if not an accountability partner or coach or somebody, to give you that outside support to really, change who you are, or even take a look at who you are now and figure out what behaviors need to change along the way. So there's definitely a lot of emotion and psychology related to it. And, as I was kind of researching for all this, so many things pop up as to why resolutions fail. And that's why I thought this would be a really interesting topic to kind of figure out. So let's talk about SMART goals. Probably most people have heard of this. I just kind of put this on the slide to define what each letter means in the acronym. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So let's kind of talk about all these components, because we're going to use the SMART goal setting in one of the O's of our W.H.O.P.I.E goal setting. So the first S is really for specific. We need to be specific with our goal, and that's kind of the who, what, when, where, why of your goal. So these are all the little things that need to be in place to really have your goal not be so general that it's hard to even measure if you're going in the right direction. The big one in that, I always think, is the why, and that's figuring out, the reason for this goal, whether it's personal development or health or for somebody else that you love and you want to do it for them. You got to have a big why in mind for that, and it's going to help you when everything's emotionally or even physically challenging. Then the measurable, what metrics are you going to use to determine if you meet that goal? This goal, it might be that things aren't super tangible, so you got to figure out what you can use. If it's measuring something really specific, there's lots of tools out there for it typically, but maybe it's more just milestones are in place and you have to achieve those at certain time frames. So making it measurable. Achievable, this is always one of figuring out, like, can you actually do this and what things you need to learn along the way to be able to make some behavior changes. Maybe some new skills need to be acquired. And that can be always challenging when it comes to a goal. Is it realistic? So focusing on something that makes sense with the broader picture of what you want to do, this higher level goal for you. I mean, if it's impossible to achieve, I always say set big goals, but if it's impossible to achieve, you're just going to beat yourself into the ground with it. And you got to make it realistic, even if it makes that big goal become a bunch of little goals to get there. You can all treat them with this kind of W.H.O.P.I.E goal setting process. And then it's got to be timed. This is the easy part. You got to set time limits on it. We all like a little pressure. Who doesn't operate a little bit better when they're under pressure? As I was finishing this today, making sure I had everything in place and that I was getting everything right. So a little bit of pressure helps for sure. So now let's talk about the acronym for the W.H.O.P.I.E goal. Probably everybody's looked at their PDF, and I did write a big blog post about this that explains it pretty in depth too. But let's just kind of quickly go through what each letter stands for, and then we'll go through this whole process together too. So this will take up the next 6 slides or so, and then we'll actually start doing a little bit of stuff on your goal setting guide. So that first one goes together, wishing and hoping. This is kind of the birth of the goal, so to speak. This is a stage where you identify what it is you want to achieve, what you're hoping for, what you're wishing for. And it's good because it's helpful to kind of visualize this thing, see it coming into your mind and coming into a reality that actually gives us a little bit of, a hormonal bump, a little bit of cortisol, or something to give us some pressure, something to start pushing us. Then the next O is outcome. So this is the long range overarching goal. This is what you want to achieve, this big overarching outcome goal. And in this steps where you'll really put some clarity to your goal, and we'll make it SMART. This is where we use that SMART part of the acronym. Next O is obstacles. And this is probably a big overlooked one, is actually looking at what could be in the way, what you're probably going to have to work through that can be obstacles and can give you excuses to kind of give up on pushing forward and trying to achieve your goal. Next one is P is plan. So now you're starting to develop some clarity around the goal. You know what you want, why you want it, what may get in your way. And then the plan can be formed and put together, which is really, a huge step to get that plan put in place. So now to attach a little bit of emotion to it and make it our own goal and make it a little bit of who we are. I always love this part, and just to say, I am the type of person who, and then you plug in the rest of that phrase, and we'll use that a lot today. And, I want you to use this in your mind and your self-talk too. So becoming part of this goal and identifying with it is a big step for sure. And then the last part is execution. So this is where we put down the X's and O's and really figure out exactly how we're going to do it. We break things down from a larger outcome goal into these smaller, more achievable sub-goals. And we'll do that today with our example goal when we get to the sub-goal part as well. All right, so let's go through the first 2 here, wish and hope. This is the genesis of the goal. This is a stage where you identify what you want. You're hoping for change in your health, change in your finances and relationships. You got to wish and hope a little bit. This is the one where I'm going to start to kind of put our goal together. I want to lose a little weight. I want to feel better. I want to perform better, maybe run a half marathon. So you're putting some actual thoughts into the actual aspects of the goal, but nothing super specific yet. We're going to use this example throughout the whole presentation. So kind of think of those like you got in the email. Just think about what your goals would be, and you can start to jot some stuff down. So now we're going to really put this goal together, put the outcome together. So this is the first time you're going to truly establish what the outcome goal will be. You may have thought like lose weight and run a half marathon, but we got to make it crystal clear. This is where emotions begin to really take shape in your WHOOP-I goal. Now you can identify what you're going to accomplish, but also identify how it's going to feel when you accomplish it. So this step is where we use that SMART acronym to design the parameters around our goal. You know, if we're taking this goal all the way to completion, we should know exactly how we're going to get there. So using our example goal, we want to lose weight. What's the outcome of that going to be? So we've got to put some specifics to it. We want to lose 50 pounds. We also want to complete a half marathon, so run 13.1 miles, and it needs to have a time frame to it. So run that half marathon in less than 3.5 hours and accomplish that by August 15th, 2021. So it has all our components of our SMART goal, specific and measurable. It has, you know, it's realistic. We gave ourselves plenty of time to do it. It's relevant to us, and now we have a time frame on it. So if we're going to attach, you know, a little bit of emotion to this goal, then, you know, this is something you may feel a little bit weird doing, but closing your eyes and just thinking about how we're going to achieve this goal. Like, what are we going to actually feel like when we achieve this goal? We want to attach some emotion to it. So if you close your eyes, for our goal, we picture ourselves standing at the finish line. We look up, the clock reads 3 hours and 12 minutes. You're 50 pounds lighter, and that's what helped you finish the race 18 minutes faster than you were planning on it. And you look up and you see your kids, you know, or a family member, and your kids are excited and they're cheering for you, and they run over, and then you get your picture taken with them at the finish line, and you think like, oh, I'm going to put this picture up in my office, and all my clients and everybody I work with is going to see it, and they're going to ask me about it, and then I'll get to tell them how I accomplished this goal, and I'd never even really run before, you know, and now you're putting all those emotions together. You know, you're starting to get that deep attachment with your goal. And, you know, whatever feeling you attach to it, being happy, being proud, being accomplished, you know, it's just got to be some kind of feeling attached to it so that you can reach for that feeling whenever it gets tough and you want to quit and it's raining outside or whatever obstacles are going to come up. You got to have that emotion or that feeling that you can kind of dig into and be able to reach for and keep pushing along. So that's the one big thing that I think is missing from just a SMART goal, is not attaching enough emotion to it. So we'll talk a lot more about that with just accountability to ourselves and others. But now let's hit up, you know, the really tough stuff. So fun to think about all the good things, but then we got to think about all the bad things, or all the challenging things. Let's put it that way. So if we're thinking about obstacles, there could be a lot of them, right? We're going to come up with a lot more potentially along the way. We're going to have more obstacles we'll run into. Things aren't going to always go how you want them to. They're not going to go as you planned. Maybe you have to work late, or it's snowing outside, so you can't go do your run, or your kids keep you up late, and so you have to change how the rest of your day works. But the big point of the obstacles part is we're going to think through a lot of these situations, and you're not going to know all of them, but we're going to think through a lot of them, and then that'll give you ideas or flexibility kind of moving forward. So if we talk about the 3 types of obstacles, the easy ones, I think, are some of the physical obstacles. I mean, that's simple going through COVID. It's that gyms are closed and we can't go to the gym. So how do we work out? We got to find other means, you know. And then there's emotional ones. So you had a bad day, and having a bad day makes you want to overeat or stop by Chick-fil-A on the way home. Or maybe it's a relationship-based obstacle, and that's where your friend wants to go out to eat all the time, and you think that's going to make it impossible to stay on your meal plan and your nutrition plan. So, you know, what do you do? What do you tell your friend? And just thinking through some of these will make it easier when you have to address them in real life. And we're going to go through this step by step when we go through our sub goals, and we'll have pretty specific ones we'll go through that'll hopefully give you guys some good ideas on these. I'm not sure what I just did there. Sorry, I lost something here real quick. Oh, there we go. There's everybody again. Sorry, I lost myself for a second. Okay, here we go. And now let's move on to plan. So when your plan becomes more clear, now you know what you want, you know why you want it and what you want to get out of it, but you also know what could possibly get in your way. You've already put in a bunch of the hard work. So now you're just kind of working on what's your blueprint for this. It's all the behaviors you need to do every day and on a weekly basis to hit your checkpoints, to make sure you're progressing toward your outcome goal. So we'll go through this step by step when we do our sub goals, and we'll have those components of the SMART goals and all the tools we need to measure them. But let's kind of look at our example goal again. So we want to, come up with some pretty quick, easy ones for this. We want to lose 50 pounds and run a half marathon in under 3.5 hours. So one of the first ones we need to think about are, we probably need to look at what do we need to do to start running. We probably need to start running a few days a week. And then on the off days, we probably need to take care of our soft tissue and stretch and do a little stabilization and keep things healthy. So these are some of the easy little sub goals we can come up with. If we're going to lose weight, we probably need to eat 80% whole foods and figure out a protein goal. And we're going to try to hit that on a daily basis. These aren't complete, but I just wanted to get you kind of starting to think about some of these. A lot of this, the W.H.O.P.I.E goal setting, the W.H.O.O.P.I.E part comes from a book called Rethinking Positive Thinking. And this is kind of where she stops, is at the P portion of it. But what I think doesn't happen from there is you don't really truly get kind of connected to your goal without those emotional parts. And we don't really have an execution of our plan laid out. So that's where the I comes in, and that's to identify yourself with this goal. I love this one. I talk to people a lot about this part, and just that self-talk is really important in my opinion as well. So you need to be the type of person who, and you can plug in whatever phrase is easiest for you, but identify some of those obstacles and identify yourself as that person who overcomes those obstacles. So you stick to the plans when things get hard, and you make it who you are. It's part of who you are to become that person of that goal you want to achieve. So I'm the type of person who works out when I travel because I'm going to run a half marathon. So I need to work out when I travel. Or I'm the type of person who chooses water instead of soda because I'm trying to lose weight and I know that's a better option for me. And I'm the type of person who cooks my own food instead of eating out. And as you start to identify yourself as that person, and this can be self-talk, this can be things you say out loud to people, but you start to identify with those statements and identify yourself as that specific type of person. So, this should be directly related to some of your obstacles you came up with earlier. And it should be kind of always on your mind in terms of this big outcome goal. And you're the type of person that does what? It's definitely a big step and worth taking the time to think about, write it down, put 3 to 5 of those down, live by these, make them your little mantra. You're the type of person who does what? So the last step here is execute. This is the one that incorporates everything else you've done up to this point. No goals are accomplished without taking action. So this is where the hard work comes in, right? It's fun to think about all this stuff and put it all together, but then you got to actually do it. So for this step, it's about breaking down the big outcome goal into sub goals. And each sub goal will be progressive, and it'll kind of define the actions and behaviors you'll need to perform on a daily basis, a weekly basis to get to that outcome goal. We'll make those SMART. We'll make them very easy to follow, and we'll make sure they're not too challenging along the way because we're already going to have obstacles. So we need to make those sub goals as easy to attain in 2 or 3 weeks as possible, make them a habit, make them part of our lifestyle. And then that way we can move on and kind of build on that last goal too. Probably the last little part of the execution is being self-motivated is challenging. So it's proven technique to kind of build in some internal motivation is to reward yourself. And, reward yourself for each sub goal, reward yourself with the big outcome goal, but you want that to be a tangible way to celebrate the inner win of using an external reward. And it's very important because it builds integrity with yourself. You've proven to yourself that you can set your mind to something and achieve it. And each time you do that, you make a deposit into your self-integrity account, which builds confidence. And that starts to provide internal motivation, which in all honesty is the most valuable type of motivation and accountability. And you just keep building that with yourself. And those little sub goals are going to do that along the way and just help you move towards that outcome goal. All right, so now we have everything in place. So it's time to put it all together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a sub goal by going through this process step by step. So I would suggest with your PDF handout that you make a bunch of copies of it so that you can put all these down on the piece of paper. That way it's all laid out the same. And when you have, take your original, or I'm sure you all have digital versions too. So then you can go through and do each sub goal. Not that you're going to get all those done now, but you'll have time to do those, when you kind of take a little time for yourself and do them. Then we're going to go through the behavior modification sheet. This will give you a chance to take kind of an in-depth look at the thoughts and behaviors you're going to need and the ones that might hold you back. And it's challenging to do this, requires some deep inner work, but we'll talk about how you're going to get that stuff done when you do it on your own outside of this webinar and kind of develop some awareness in the moment of those actions. So the next step is going to be looking at the benefits of achieving your sub goals and your outcome goals. And this is a big one too, because you got to reward yourself a little bit. And this will give you kind of a chance to take that comprehensive look at how you're achieving your goals and how you're improving your life, your family's lives, everyone in your inner circle. Who is this touching? Who is this goal going to affect, kind of thing. And the final steps, building in accountability, both internally and externally. This goes back to identifying yourself as the type of person who ... and making your goals public by telling people and posting them where others can see them. And, this is where we can use social media to actually be advantageous. And this part's tough because it creates vulnerability. It can be a little scary. You're making yourself vulnerable and you're building in that accountability. So if you don't achieve it, what's that going to do? So you got to kind of build some of that in to the whole system as well. All right, so step 2 here, this is going to be where it says create a step-by-step plan. This is going to be our first sub goal. So we need to break our outcome goal into parts, and then each part becomes a sub goal. So this is beginning with the end in mind. Sometimes your outcome goal requires one behavior to be performed before we can move on to the next behavior. And then sometimes we can perform kind of simultaneous behaviors that complement each other. So it's a little bit of a delicate balance, and we just got to make sure we don't go too much too fast and overwhelm ourselves. So we'll try to be careful of that as well. We need each sub goal to be SMART. So let's think about our outcome goal of lose 50 pounds and run a half marathon in less than 3.5 hours by August 15th, 2021. I don't even know if there's a half marathon then, but we're going to say there is. So I would say the first objective is we need to start losing weight, but there's several ways to go about this. And this is where our goals can kind of work together of these, putting these two goals together. So eating healthier or consuming less calories is going to help us lose some weight, and then exercising. So that's great. It's 2 parts of our goal. So it fits in perfect with our outcome goal to do these 2 behaviors at the same time. So how do we do that? We need to start eating better foods. We need to build the habit of running. So let's go down to the track my progress part of your worksheet. I think sometimes you have to do this part first so you have some way to measure things or know where you're starting from. And because we're going to do the nutrition part first, we got to know kind of where we're at now. So this little bit of awareness to our lives and what we're doing with our nutrition. And this gives us a baseline to work off of. So there's lots of ways to accomplish this, using a food journal, using a plate method, maybe tracking. We're using MyFitnessPal and weighing and measuring, or container method. We got a lot of options here. So it's really picking the thing you're the most comfortable with. But now we have a tool, or at least one or two tools, and we can put that in that section, and we can start to make changes in our diet. We start to bring awareness to that part. So that's our awareness point. So let's put that in the track my progress section. Now that you have awareness about your eating, you notice you eat out 5 days a week at lunchtime, and that's a lot of calories. So we always want to keep it simple. It should be simpler than you think, because it's going to get more challenging for sure, and make it achievable. So I would say that first sub goal would be something like, I will prepare and bring my lunch 4 out of 5 days every week for the next 3 weeks. Pretty simple, right? Easy to measure, easy to track, builds in a little bit of leeway, 4 out of 5 days versus every day. So this has all our requirements. So this is what we would use to build that habit, so that we can do this for 3 weeks. And then that becomes that habit of taking our lunch every day. So we build this into our lives. I had somebody join in earlier here real quick. We built that into our lives, and now sorry, missing a bunch of things here. Now that we have it built into our lives, we can add a goal on top of that. So find out where I'm at on my notes here. Okay, so now let's talk about our next goal, which would be, or actually let's talk about our obstacles that could get in our way. And this will help us with kind of achieving that sub goal as well, because we're going to run into things here. So obstacle wise, let's say we're worried about taking our lunches because we didn't have time to plan and prep that day. So we get to work and we don't have a lunch. So then our obstacle we face is we don't have lunch. And the way to get around that is we could go buy a rotisserie chicken, some pre-washed lettuce, greens, salads at the grocery store, and then we could have a simple vinaigrette dressing. And that could get us through lunch for 2 or 3 days. And that's not going to take much time at all, maybe 20 to 30 minutes one day at lunch. And that's going to give you lunch for 2 or 3 days. Maybe you have meetings at lunchtime here and there. So you got to make sure you bring it. You have your lunch complete with a fork and dressing, and then you can eat your lunch during those meetings. If you forgot your lunch, maybe somebody could bring it to you, your kid or your spouse. Maybe you just didn't plan ahead. So you got to kind of think through some of these obstacles. But you just got to be a problem solver. That's probably the biggest thing that it comes down to. Then we're going to use our little date section. We kept these sub goals pretty short. So 1 to 3 weeks. Mainly you're just trying to get these habits, these small little things put in place. So we just say 3 weeks from now. And then once you do this goal for 3 weeks in a row, then you get some kind of reward for yourself. And it's always great to build in that reward, whether it's for the sub goals or for the outcome goal, to make it something that complements your goal and even can lead to the next step of that goal. So if we're doing a nutrition-based goal, we don't want it to be, I'm going to go out for pizza, because then that's working against our goal. So a great one that I think is, we get to that reward for achieving it, and we're going to go buy ourselves a nice new fancy water bottle. And then when somebody asks about our water bottle, we can tell them why we did it and why we bought this water bottle for ourselves. And we can use that in the future for our goal to drink more water. So it kind of leads right into our goal. So now let's do one for our running part. So for the running part of our goal, we need to start running, but we don't like to run, or maybe we don't run at all. So what's the simplest way to start building this habit into our life? What's even simpler than running, but it's one step above sitting on the couch? Walking. So let's start walking. Running's a stressful activity. We got to be careful not to start off doing too much too fast. It's stressful for our cardiovascular system, usually pretty stressful for our ego when we run down the block and we think we've gone a mile and we've only gone 300 yards. So first we got to just get something that gets us into the habit of working out, which is walking. So we don't really need anything to track in this section. I mean, we don't have a baseline, let's say, but we can use our Apple Watch or Fitbit or whatever. That's going to give us time and distance, and that's pretty simple. So we can put that in the track my progress section. And then we need to make it a SMART goal. So I will walk a 12-minute pace for 30 minutes straight, 4 days a week for 3 weeks in a row. So that's got all of our components of our SMART goal. It's easy to measure. It's very attainable, and it's got some time-bound parts to it. Now, if you go down one section to achieve this sub-goal, how are you going to achieve it? So it's, okay, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and I'm going to walk from 6:15 to 6:45 a.m. I'll wear my Apple Watch and record each workout so I can keep track of my pace and keep each mile under 12 minutes. So that makes those two pretty straightforward. So now let's look at our obstacles. What could you encounter? Well, probably hitting the snooze button if it's early and you're not an early person. So you have to set 2 alarms. You put one across the room, so you have to get up. Once you're up, just do it. Make a different decision. Get up and do it. Maybe it's raining outside, so you have to buy some gear to go in the rain or any kind of weather. And that's when this identity comes in. I'm the type of person who does this in the rain. It doesn't matter. I put on my gear and I go. Maybe you can lose motivation, which happens along the way. So you find a friend, and 2 days a week you go out with them. So you have somebody that's kind of an accountability buddy for you. And then the reward part is one of my favorite, because you get to buy new shoes, is complete the goal in 3 weeks. Then you get to buy yourself a new pair of workout clothes. I would say shoes, new pair of shoes or workout clothes. Maybe you get to buy yourself some jorts. If you haven't seen the jorts photo, you can probably find that on Instagram, but they're pretty funny. 80s jorts. So you get to buy yourself something. That's the whole point there. Really, it's just about breaking these into smaller, more actionable behavior goals so that you can come up with 1 or 2 that stack on top of each other. That's, kind of the eating healthy and then working on the water and getting in so much water because you got the water bottle. And you want these goals to just kind of flow into the next one, but they're always moving you towards that big outcome goal. So this is a part where you'll really have to spend some time on the sub goals, think through all the parts and really nail them down. Maybe you have to research a little bit to find out what tools you need to track some progress and get some metrics on things. Whatever it is, be as detailed as possible. And then again, for that kind of built-in accountability, share them with a friend, see if they have any input. Maybe they have a valuable perspective on it that you haven't even thought about. And when you share it with them, you get a little bit of an idea of like, oh yeah, that would be a good way to put that, or, a different way to kind of put your goal together. All right, so that's a lot on the sub goals. I know that's a huge component of it and it takes a while, but those are important. Those are the little goals, the little behavior steps that take you along the way. All right. Now we are on to step 3 of the guide. So this is behavior modification to evoke that next habit change. So I put this in the process here because changing behavior is hard. I think it's the hardest thing, and that's why we do the things we do, is we're habit-based people, creatures, and we want to just keep doing those same things. But you can't really just eliminate a habit. You really need to replace it with something that's a better habit or a healthier habit or moves you towards your goal. So 3 parts to a habit. You have the cue, whatever cues you to do something, then the routine, which is the habit part, and then the reward, which is why you do that behavior. And this is where we need to bring some awareness to some of these behaviors so that we can change the routine and we can change that loop from cue, routine, and reward and make it a more healthy habit. I think the best way to do this and bring awareness to it is by journaling. Ideally, you're doing it in the moment and you're writing down some of the W's that go around that. What were you doing right before the behavior? Where were you and who are you with? Those are going to answer a lot of the questions right there. That'll give you the cue part of the loop. and then just dissect the routine around it. And, why are you seeking out this reward, and what emotions are you getting out of that? And what were your feelings at that time? And it doesn't have to be a ton of stuff, a few sentences, small paragraph. That's going to give you it's going to show you trends over time, and you're going to be able to look at those and figure out why you're doing some of those things. So this will give you a good idea of just your mind and your focus. And then it'll really allow you to do something between stimulus and response. You have a choice at that point. Sometimes you just got to tell yourself, make a different choice. So that's my little plea in that portion there. Make a different choice. It's not easy, but make a different choice. So now let's weigh that to our goal. So how are you going to get to 50 pounds overweight? Probably because you're eating dessert all the time. You're eating too many calories. No matter how full you are, you're probably eating foods you shouldn't. And you realize you always find yourself standing in front of the fridge or the pantry looking for dessert right after you wash off your plate for dinner, and you're not even hungry. And you also realize that you're the first one done with dinner every night, so you're eating way too fast. So something you remember from childhood was eating dessert after dinner every night with your parents. And you want that same reward, but not with the dessert part. So this is the chance to make that habit a little bit healthier. So after you eat dinner, you wash off your plate, you're going to kind of restructure where you are and what your mindset is. And this is where you wash off your plate, get a big glass of water, and then you sit back down with your family until they finish dinner. And that way you still get to enjoy your family. You aren't in the kitchen looking for dessert. And now you've replaced that habit with a healthier habit that's more in line with your goals and values. And that's a pretty simple example, but definitely achievable. That's something that you could do. It just requires, a few different thoughts and a few different actions along the way. This part's really important and challenging. So again, let's enlist a friend or a family member, or I'll make a plea for a coach. And at that point, discuss this with them, get some objective feedback, take some time with this part and learn something about yourself. All right, a little more fun in this topic is benefits. So this is kind of the second part of step 3. And the natural consequences of any good behavior are benefits. So let's talk about the benefits of how it'll affect everybody around you. Let's focus on some of that external accountability of maybe it's a workout partner or it's a family member seeing you do stuff, and your goal is going to affect them and make them want to eat better or get in shape, or, some of those benefits are going to kind of fall into place. So if we take our example, losing weight, it's going to require us to eat healthier. So everyone in our family is going to benefit from learning how to eat better. We're cooking better. That requires us buying higher quality foods and more nutrient dense foods. And therefore you have better foods in the house, and your family will start to make better choices simply because the environment has changed. This is all just getting into leading by example, especially when your kids see you eating healthier and working on yourself. They'll see how your value system emphasizes taking care of yourself and caring about your body and health. And you can see how all these things start to snowball together. And same thing with running. People start to see you working out, your inner circle sees you losing weight and getting in better shape. And, you're probably going to influence some other relationships through that as well. So, I always think if you're doing good things, you're going to spread that health and fitness to other people from your inner circle on out. And people are going to start to notice, and they're going to start to either want to help you and be closer to you and thrive from that, or maybe they're going to go the other direction, and maybe you don't need those people in your life. So the third benefit I would say would just be you're getting healthier in general. This is obviously for you, but if you're focusing on those outside benefits, you're going to get a lot more out of it. You're just going to feel better in general from it. And then you can always reinforce that whenever you aren't as motivated and you want to kind of get through things. So last part of this is going public. So the last step, critical step for long-term success, this is proven through tons of psychological literature and studies, is going public with your goals telling people, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, but talking about how you're going to do your goals to people, giving yourself a little bit of public accountability, which will create some pressure. And you can use this pressure when you want to, maybe not do your goals or you're procrastinating a little bit, but this is going to give you that outside help and assistance. Good old pressure and procrastination. So lots of psychology involved in this step for sure. But I also think a big part of this is when you're telling somebody what you're going to do and you add in plenty of details and emotion, it starts to create a sense of accomplishment in your mind. You start to feel that goal becoming real, and it makes it more achievable because you've talked through it with people. It's almost like visualizing before you go out on the field to do a sport. So use that psychology to your advantage. Tell people about what you're doing, when you're going to do it, how you're going to accomplish it. Go through it in detail, and this will help a lot. So, I think on your worksheet for this one, just write down the who and the how for now, and then you can kind of maybe even on a separate sheet, just kind of fill all that stuff in, whether it's family members, friends. You can do social media. It can be anywhere, all over the place. It can be through social media. You can email people. You could write letters to people. Just, kind of have fun with that part. Just whatever it is, just go public with it. And then the last part of this page, back to good old obstacles, not to end on a challenging note, but let's talk a bit about the relationship-based obstacles. So, these can be tough ones. This is where you're going to have people in your life that aren't going to support you. They're going to be the devil's advocate. They're going to tell you everything that you can't do and it's going to go wrong. And, maybe they're doing it premeditated or subconsciously, or maybe they're just jealous, but, it's a tough part. And, I don't have a great answer for it. I think what you have to do is talk to people, be open with them, tell them what you're wishing and hoping for, lay out your whole plan for them if they're willing to listen to it. And, that's going to create some kind of trust with them, and they're going to see why you're doing it. I always think about this with a friend of mine, and he wants to lose weight. And this is just a classic example here is he's like, yeah, every time I go to a family event, my mom will hand me like a giant piece of cake. And even though she knows I'm trying to lose weight, she hands me a big piece of cake. She knows I'm trying to get healthy. And she tells everyone, oh, don't worry, Junior can eat this big piece of cake because he's running now and he's always had a big appetite. He's a big guy, and it's like, well, how do you handle that situation? It's like good old parents jumping in there. I would just say, no, thanks. I don't want the cake. I'm working towards these goals. One of them is to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to run a half marathon on August 15th, 2021. This is going to reinforce not only what you're doing, but it's going to tell everybody around you at that point why you're making these changes in your life. Again, it's that going public, getting accountability for it. So relationship-based obstacles are tough. They're individualized. They're situational for sure. Think through some recent events with them and what you may struggle with. And then, take that to a friend too. Ask them about it. They're probably going to know you pretty well, and even some of your family members or some of your other friends, and maybe they'll have some good ideas for them as well. All right, my challenge to you. So probably going to have to block out 1 or 2 hours, find a quiet place, go through this whole sheet. Maybe the example we went through today will give you some ideas, and then hopefully it'll give you some direction on some of those. Even if it's 10 sub goals to get you along the way, just make sure it fits into that time frame and that each sub goal is SMART, and you can carry that sub goal out till it becomes a habit. It needs to be a part of your lifestyle and integrated into your daily routine to the point where you can build other habits on top of it. So think about that habit stacking for that sustainability. And what are you going to need help with? Well, this is where I'd make a case for a coach as well, whether it's nutrition coaching, business coaching, movement coaching, you name it. There's a coach for everything out there, and just having someone who's knowledgeable about what you're trying to accomplish and that they've taken other people to that outcome goal you're trying to achieve it's not only going to save you time and energy, it's going to save you a lot of frustration and possibly giving up on your goal ultimately. And the last part is find a friend to share this with. Maybe they want to do the whole W.H.O.P.I.E goal setting as well with you for their own goals. Share your whole plan with them. Ask for honest, open feedback. Maybe they'll come up with things you're blind to because you're too emotionally attached to the goal. Maybe they'll have different ideas of what you need to learn or the assistance you'll need along the way to change some of these behaviors. But I would say at that point, I guess what I'm trying to say is just be willing to have some constructive criticism given to you and be able to accept it and just kind of dial in your W.H.O.P.I.E goal, because the whole point is being set up for success in 2021. So I'm talking a lot here. All right, last couple slides. So I'm going to give you a little commercial here. Here's my advertisement. But I've been coaching people for 10 years, been refining the process, and discovered that, efficient and effective program needs to really include custom nutrition and education, something that teaches you how to meal plan, grocery shop, cook, have flexibility to enjoy all the foods you love and still be able to achieve your goals. But I think that comprehensive education plan needs to be paired with systematic mindset training to achieve long-term results, because you don't change your mindset, then you're going to really struggle to develop long-term success with your goals, because you're stuck in that same paradigm. The other aspect is movement and exercise. There's just really not any one-size-fits-all plan for your goals and your body's history. With a comprehensive movement evaluation and prescriptive corrective exercises so that you can get past whether it's current injuries or preventing injuries in the future, that's going to just multiply your long-term health and fitness results. And this needs to include, in my opinion, a little personal movement assessment. And this goes to my therapy background and working with people at the gym for years, and some monthly in-person sessions to measure progress and make sure you're periodizing your exercise so that you can continue getting results. And, really the final step to me is a comprehensive plan is it has to go through ongoing nutrition plan maintenance and give you a strategy for long-term success. Because if you don't learn the skills to check your progress in the future and monitor your own nutrition in everyday life situations, you're just going to struggle to have long-term success. So this is a new package I've put together. It's a big package in terms of points to hit, touch points along the way, how much accountability you get. It includes all these things I just talked about, and I can almost guarantee you're going to get results if you're working with me for this 6-month period. And if that's not long enough, we keep working together, then we reduce the price for sure to $229 a month. So make sure we hit those goals eventually. It's the start of the new year, and just with this level of attention and commitment, I can really only accept 5 people. So if you're interested in this program, shoot me an email, sign up for a free discovery call, and we'll talk about kind of what the next steps are, if it's right for you. If that seems like it's too much of a big commitment, because any commitment's going to be a big major life change, but maybe that's too much, too scary, then we also have general coaching. You're still going to get a lot of this stuff in the design. You're going to get an unprecedented amount of accountability and comprehensive coverage of nutrition, movement, mindset training, tons of support. So a lot of structure, just like the VIP program, just not quite as much one-on-one touch points, and you're not going to get the movement assessment and the ongoing coaching and training. So those are my 2 new nutrition coaching packages, comprehensive plans that I've put together. If anybody's interested, again, message me, sign up on the website for the discovery call. And then thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate your time. And if anybody's got questions, I'm amazed if you hung out till the end, because I talked a lot. Shouldn't have had so much caffeine. But if you have a question, just you can unmute yourself, ask a question. I actually pulled up the little comment section this time, thanks to my wife telling me what to do last time. You could always type a question in there if you want to. If anybody didn't get the PDF, just let me know. I can message that over to you as well. Anybody? Anything? Any questions? Actually, go ahead.
So you talked about the comprehensive plan including like macro tracking, and I'm wondering, like, is that something you recommend doing like pen and paper? Do you have an app that you tie to that? Is there anything like further with that?
Yeah, so what we mainly for cost purposes, like we just use MyFitnessPal. So the free version of MyFitnessPal works really well. Actually, I can exit out of the presentation there. Do you guys see me again or not?
We can still see you.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Just not everybody's miniature because of the presentation.
Oh, okay. Is that still up there? Thank you for listening thing, or did that go away now?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it's still there.
So it's there, but we can see the entire browser window. So I think you need to go into.
Ooh, stop presenting. Hey, look at that.
There you got it.
I'm learning. No, we just use MyFitnessPal, and it's actually the biggest, most comprehensive database of all the foods. And I mean, it's really a pretty nice app, and the free version works great.
Yeah.
There's a bunch out there, and some people might have different opinions on different apps, but that's the one we use. And it kind of depends where you're starting from too. You know, we may start with different things at the beginning where maybe you're measuring things through a container system. Maybe you're just taking pictures of stuff. Maybe we're just figuring out calories and protein to start with, and then we kind of dial things in. Typically, the more pinpoint or dialed in your goals are, the more accurate you have to be with tracking and quantity, quality, you know, consumption for the most part. But good question. Anybody else?
Hey, Brant, I'm going to hop off, but when I get more into this, can I shoot you some questions if I run into questions?
Of course, and that goes out to everybody. Yeah, if you block a little time and you start working on stuff and you have questions, just send me an email. It's probably the easiest way to kind of write some stuff out. And then if you're, you know, if it's too much for email too, we could set up a call or something. That's fine too.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you doing this.
Hey, thanks for being here. One of my questions is like, so I want to do one of these about every 6 weeks. So what's another topic?
Okay.
Like what do other people want to hear about? I mean, something in the maybe exercise space, injury prevention space, mindset, more nutrition, like dialed in nutrition type of stuff. I even thought about like one where we just go through our whole process and how we do nutrition coaching, you know, kind of the secrets behind the system kind of thing. Maybe that's giving away too much. I don't know. But
Brant, I have a suggestion, and it's something I've wanted from you from the beginning.
A hug?
I want to see, I know you guys are working, you and Brad are working on, sorry, Brad's fingers in the camera, but I know you guys have been working on a cooking thing, but I would love for you to do a nutrition label exercise of some sort.
Okay.
I don't know, you know, like, I know that I'm learning how to read labels, but like, for instance, just the power bar struggle, right? Like I know which one I'm using, but when you're going to the store, like what's one thing that you're looking for on the packaged foods that we're eating versus a different one or something like that? Just even like in closing, like, okay, right now we're going to analyze these two different power bars and what do you think is the best type of thing for that?
Okay.
I like want to go shopping with you, but I don't know how to do it. Good idea. Shopping with Brant.
Well, at the beginning of 2020, that was one of my plans, was to like go do a shopping trip and just have somebody, you know, with a camera and go through like, okay, this is when you get to the store, this is where you go first. This is how to look at labels. But then, I mean, I guess I could still try to do that. I don't know if they'd kick me out of Albertsons or something.
Visualize it. And, you know, you go around the corner and there's your wife waiting for you at the end of the aisle.
Uh-huh.
Shopping cart.
I know your camera guy. I'm sure he could go with you.
I got an amazing camera guy. That's not the problem. It's the COVID precautions. But I know what you're saying. I think that I started to do kind of shorter little, I don't know if anybody's seen these. They're called Whiteboard Wednesdays, and it's going to be kind of explaining little things like that. So maybe I'd put up different labels and be like, okay, if you're looking at some of these things on your label, you know, if the first 3 ingredients are this, this, and this, avoid this food. Or if you're looking for something with protein, be careful in seeing how many carbohydrates are in it. Or, you know, what are the carbohydrates that tend to spike your blood sugar more? Or, you know, so I think I could do that through some of the Whiteboard Wednesday ones too. And
for sure.
That would be a good one.
Thanks, Grant.
You bet. Good suggestion. Anybody else?
I think that doing your food prep, I know you just did one not too long ago, but I think going through and doing one of those again would be really beneficial to a lot of people. I think those are really important.
Yeah, and something I think everybody struggles with a little bit, no matter what nutritional level they're at when they come in, is, you know, organizing a grocery list and then getting groceries, but then preparing stuff efficiently. And we actually have a little video series coming out with a professional chef, and he kind of goes through preparing just like a 3-ingredient meal. We go through all the steps. He talks about kitchen utensils to use and how to use fats and oils and acids, and kind of make things flavorful but not add a ton of sodium or not add calories to your meals. So I think that'll be a cool series when that one comes out too. We've done all the filming. It's just putting it all together is really challenging. So I don't envy Brad for that part. Because I think we filmed for like 4 or 5 hours that day, so it's a lot of video to sort through. Thank you, Brad.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Brent.
You bet. Thanks for being on. Anybody else? Any other suggestions of things to do in the future, or questions about anything we talked about today or anything else?
One suggestion that I'd be super interested in is like dialing into like the startup motivation of like starting something, because I've done a lot of the planning of like, hey, I know exactly the steps that I need to do in order to do meal planning and meal prep, but instead of like doing that on the time that I allot that is on my calendar and I have an alarm that goes off, I'm like, I'm just gonna go for a bike ride. So that's kind of like where more of the mindset, motivation, and behavioral training comes in that I think would be very beneficial to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that one too, because I did a little series on just accountability and coaching. And I think kind of putting that into a webinar would be interesting too, and talking about, you know, that mindset of, do you find some external accountability, or do you need internal accountability or motivation at some point, and then you lean on external motivation and accountability, and then that's going to get you to XYZ point, and then from there you can kind of carry it out. Yeah, I like all the mindset stuff, so I want to think of one that's, you know, I like that flow to it, because it's easy, like the W.H.O.O.P.I.E goal, it's like, oh, it's easy to wish and hope about something, and then you can even put the plan together, but then you just sit there, you know, and then you can't get the goal accomplished. Yeah, it's like, I know I was going to do that, but I'll do it tomorrow, you know, and it's like, so no, that's a good one. I like that.
Brad, I'm interested in that injury prevention you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that would be a cool one. Even just like exercise prescription, so to speak. So, you know, what your goals are, how you need to design some exercises for it, how to work into a program without doing too much too quickly or overloading joints and tendons and causing injury. So I think that would be an interesting topic for sure, because, you know, movement's just challenging. You know, we all say like go to our example goal, it's like, I'm going to run a half marathon. Most of the time people are going to get injured. Like it's pretty much like, oh, I'll just start by running 3 miles today. And then 2 days later, they can't even walk because their ankles hurt so bad, or, so working into something and using some rules along the way of how to let your tissue adapt and how to take care of your soft tissue if you have some injuries. And that's actually something I've done in the past with like little in-person seminars, and done some injury prevention, soft tissue care. So that's one I could pretty easily put into a webinar too, and have little links for tools. And, here's what you need at home. Here's how you need to do, different soft tissue care. Here's how much rest you need in between workouts, depending on intensity. And so a good one. I like that. It's a good one, Connie. Anybody else?
Since we had a lot of people drop off, I was just going to add the nutrition one for grocery shopping, because I've been to a one previously that I really enjoyed. And it wasn't even at a grocery store, but we talked about like the perimeter method of like 90% of your shopping needs to be on the perimeter of the grocery store. And then just like looking at labels. But another idea to like combine with that of like have people like a week before your seminar send them like specific items on their grocery list that they're confused on and what they need to look at, because then that'll give you a little bit more ammo to like, oh, we need to target in on like this type thing, like bread.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I hear a lot of things from people like, well, how do I get more protein? Because I went to get, whatever protein bar and it was 25 grams of carbs and 12 grams of protein. And it's like, oh yeah, that's confusing. And they put these different things in the label, it's like, oh, this is maltodextrin and this is dextrose and this is, it's like, oh, these are all sugars. They're just giving them different names and making them sound different, but they're all, going to cause you issues. And yeah, I like the 90% perimeter shopping is like, yeah, you shouldn't need a whole lot of stuff out of aisles, spices and, low sodium things that you can flavor things with. And every once in a while, you're going to need some, basic, maybe nut butters and stuff like that. But, staying out of the cereal and bread aisles and all the canned packaged stuff. And yeah, that'd be a good one. I would like to do something that was like a live grocery shopping one, even if it's a little bit wonky, even if it's like camera moving around, people are in masks everywhere. And it's like, yeah, it'd still be kind of fun to do just to show people like, hey, you can get in and out of a grocery store quick. I mean, I have a whole like kind of series of emails that I tell people is like grocery store fast food. And that's kind of what I was alluding to in today's presentation was like, hey, if you don't have something for lunch, you don't need to go to Chick-fil-A. You can go to the grocery store and get prepackaged salads and a rotisserie chicken. And if you need a little more carbs, maybe you get some sushi. But, you can put a few things pretty quickly in your cart, spend $20 on it, keep it at the fridge at work, and easily eat off that for a whole week, and versus going to Chick-fil-A once and spending, $12 or $15 and getting who knows what in terms of calories and fat that are loaded onto their delicious tasting chicken. So good suggestions. I like those. Those are good ones. All right. Anybody else? Thanks for hanging on all the way to the end.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks,
appreciate your time. All right. I'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.